They abandoned their mother in the village. Years later they regrets it. Mama Grace, stop deceiving yourself. The words cut through the evening air like a blade. 3 village women laughed outside her compound, balancing calabashes on their heads. Those daughters of yours will not come back for you. City children forget their mothers. From the doorway of her mud house, Mama Grace stood still, hands trembling on the wooden frame. She wanted to answer, to defend Ada and Chica, but her throat locked. Instead, she turned slowly back inside. The room was small, smoky from the cooking fire, but tonight it glowed in her eyes like a palace. At the center lay an open trunk. Neatly folded inside, her best wrapper with hibiscus prints, a lace blouse she had kept for years, for a special day, and her husband's old Bible with pages curled at the edges. Beside it, 2 photographs, Ada and Chica in primary school uniforms, smiling through missing teeth. And one of Peter, her late husband, who had died too soon. Her lips moved, whispering as if to him. Peter, did you hear? They promised me. Our daughters promised me. Tomorrow, they will take me from this village. She lifted the phone from under her pillow, pressed it against her chest, and replayed the memory of the call 2 nights ago. Mama, pack your things, Ada had said, her voice sharp with city confidence. Mama, don't leave anything behind, Chica had added, laughter bright in the background. We've bought a big place in Abuja. You'll never suffer again. Mama Grace's eyes brimmed with tears. She bent low beside the trunk, pressing the clothes as if they were holy relics. My daughters have remembered me. Outside, the ogbono soup on the fire thickened and hissed. The aroma reached the road, pulling curious children. Mama Grace, are you celebrating something? They asked, eyes wide. She laughed, wiping her face quickly. Yes, children. My Ada and my Chica are coming tomorrow. They will take me away. We will eat together. The children clapped and ran off shouting, Mama Grace is going to the city. Their voices spread the news across the compound. Yet as she ladled soup into bowls, something stirred in the night sky. Above the breadfruit tree, the graveyard lay at the far edge of the village, where the soil turned black and the trees whispered against each other in the wind. The path was narrow, lined with thorn bushes, and few dared to walk there after sunset. But Mama Grace's feet carried her as if pulled by invisible hands. By the time she reached the cement slab where her husband lay, the moon was high, pale and cold. She dropped to her knees with a groan, her wrapper catching on the rough ground. Her trembling fingers traced his name carved into the slab, Peter Okeke, loving husband and father. Her voice broke instantly. Peter. Peter, do you hear me? Our daughters, they have left me. They say I killed you. The words hung in the night air, absurd and unbearable. She bent low, pressing her forehead against the cement. Tears pooled fast, soaking into the cracks. You know me, Peter, she cried, her voice raw. You know me. Did I not wash your wounds when you were sick? Did I not tie wrappers around my head and carry firewood on my back, just to keep us alive? You left me too soon, and I carried your children alone. And now they spit in my face and call me your murderer. She sobbed, rocking back and forth. Her hands slapped against the grave as if trying to shake him awake. Peter, if I am guilty, let the ground open and swallow me now. But if I am innocent, rise for me. Fight for me. Show them the truth. The wind moaned through the trees, bending the grasses around her. Somewhere far off, a night bird screeched. Mama Grace's body trembled as she lifted her hands toward the sky. "O Lord," she whispered through cracked lips, "you are the father of the fatherless, the husband of the widow. Look at me. My enemies have turned my daughters against me. My own blood has forsaken me. Do not let my name be covered with shame. Let the truth come out. Let my enemies eat the fruit of their own lies. But as for me, Lord, strengthen me, because I have no one left. Her sobs quieted into hoarse whispers. If you want me, Lord, call me. I am ready to come. But if not, please, leave me here long enough to see your justice. She lay prostrate on the grave, her chest heaving. The moon lit her thin frame, stretched on the cold cement like a sacrifice. For a long time she wept, until her tears ran dry. At last, she sat up slowly, wiping her face with the edge of her wrapper. Her eyes were swollen, but inside them flickered something faint, a fragile flame of faith that refused to die. She whispered once more, softer now, Peter, if your spirit can hear me, tell our daughters the truth. Visit them. Do not let them forget who their mother is. The night wind surged suddenly, rattling the trees so hard the branches shook like drums. Mama Grace froze, staring at the grave. For a moment, it seemed the cement itself pulsed under her palms. Her breath caught. Then the wind eased, and silence returned. She pressed her lips together, trembling but steadier, and rose slowly to her feet. God has heard me, she murmured. He will not let this shame last. She turned and walked back down the narrow path, her silhouette shrinking into the night, a lone widow carrying pain heavier than stone, yet holding on to faith like a torch. The next afternoon, the sun scorched Yuzoki village with a cruel brightness. Mama Grace walked slowly toward the market square, a small basket balanced on her head. Inside were only the barest things she could afford to sell, dried pepper, bitter leaf, and 2 bottles of palm oil. Her eyes were swollen from the night before, but she held her head high, whispering to herself, I will not bow. My daughters may forsake me, but the Lord sees. The market buzzed as usual. Traders shouted prices, children darted between stalls, and the scent of roasted groundnuts clung to the hot air. But as Mama Grace stepped into the square, the noise seemed to shift. Conversations dipped, eyes turned. Whispers flowed like smoke from stall to stall. There she is. The one who killed her husband. Her own daughters have confirmed it. Mama Grace's steps faltered, but she pressed on. She approached the shop of Okachukwu, the young man who usually bought her palm oil. She placed the bottles gently on his wooden counter. Good afternoon, my son. Please, help me weigh these. But Okachukwu didn't reach for the bottles. Instead, his face hardened. I cannot buy from you again. Mama Grace blinked. Why, my son? Have I offended you? His voice rose sharply, drawing attention. We don't deal with witches here. Everybody knows what you did to your husband. And now your own daughters have left you. That is proof enough. Go away with your cursed oil. The words struck like stones. A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd. Some traders turned their faces away. Others laughed bitterly. A woman selling vegetables hissed, You should be grateful we even allow you to walk among us. Mama Grace's lips trembled. It's a lie, she whispered, her voice breaking. I would never harm my husband. But Okachukwu slammed his hand on the counter. Leave my stall, before I pour this oil on the ground. Her hands shook as she lifted the basket back onto her head. Tears blurred her sight, but she forced herself to walk. Each step felt like carrying a stone. The whispers followed her, sharper than knives. She is cursed. She bewitched her daughters. Stay away from her or you will die young. She walked faster, clutching her wrapper tight. At the edge of the market, she stumbled and almost fell. Her basket tilted, spilling bitter leaf across the dust. She crouched to gather it, but her hands trembled so badly she could barely pick up the leaves. That was when a soft voice spoke behind her. Mama, let me help you. She turned, blinking through her tears. A young woman knelt beside her, carefully gathering the scattered leaves. She was slim, in her 20s, with simple cornrows and a plain dress that somehow made her beauty shine brighter. Her eyes were kind, filled with concern. My name is Blessing, the young woman said gently. Don't mind what they say. I don't believe them. Mama Grace froze, staring at her. You don't believe. Blessing shook her head firmly. My mother told me everything about you. She said you suffered to raise your daughters. She said you were always kind, always helping others. You are not what they call you. Mama Grace's throat tightened. Tears spilled freely, but this time they weren't only from pain. God bless you, my daughter, she whispered hoarsely. You are light in my darkness. Blessing smiled and picked up the last leaf. Don't cry, Mama. Give me the money. I'll buy what you need. Go home and rest. I will bring everything to your house. Mama Grace clutched her hand, trembling. You don't know what you've done for me. May heaven reward you. The market's noise faded as Blessing helped her to her feet. For the first time since her daughter's betrayal, Mama Grace felt the faint warmth of hope flicker again in her chest. The silver SUV hummed softly as it rolled through the wide tarred streets of Abuja. Towering billboards flashed light over glass buildings, and traffic lights blinked against the evening sky. Ada drove in silence, her lips pressed tightly, while Chica fiddled with her phone, trying to bury the unease gnawing at her heart. In the back seat sat Esther, her wrapper tied neatly, her eyes sweeping the city with greedy satisfaction. When they pulled into the compound of a spacious duplex, Esther's heart almost leapt out of her chest. The gate swung open automatically. The walls were high, the garden trimmed, the tiles glistening. Ah, my children, she said, feigning awe. So this is the house you bought? God has indeed blessed you. Ada barely nodded. Yes. It is ours now. Chica forced a smile. Mama will love it when she comes. Esther's head snapped toward her sharply, though her lips never lost their curve. Which Mama? That woman. I thought we already agreed. You saw the truth with your own eyes. She is not worthy of this house. Chica's chest tightened. Images of their mother's worn hands stirring soup, her smile as she hugged them, flickered painfully in her memory. She looked down, murmuring, still, she raised us. Esther's voice cut like glass. Raised you? She raised you out of guilt. Do you not see? Every morsel she gave you was only to cover her crime. You would have no life today if not for me. I am the one who deserves this seat beside you. Me, your true blood. Ada shifted uncomfortably, but her face hardened again. Auntie is right. Mama is dangerous. We cannot let her near us. Chica looked at her sister, startled by the coldness in Ada's tone. But the words Esther had whispered at her house earlier still echoed in her head, twisting her thoughts. She killed your father. She is not who you think. Inside the house, Esther walked from room to room like a queen inspecting her palace. She ran her fingers along the polished dining table, opened the fridge, and marveled at the shiny microwave. Ah! Look at how the city favors those who know how to use their heads. If only I had children like you too. Ada and Chica sat quietly in the living room. The television flickered in front of them, but their minds were restless. Esther returned and settled into a chair, folding her hands like a matriarch. Her smile widened. My daughters, she said softly, do not be deceived. That woman in the village is your greatest enemy. She killed your father. She would destroy you if she could. But she touched her chest, I will guide you. Stay close to me, and you will prosper. Ada nodded slowly, her face unreadable. Chica looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers nervously. Esther leaned back in her chair, satisfied. She had stepped into their home like a guest. But tonight, she knew, she had claimed it as her own throne. The night was warm, the hum of Abuja traffic faint through the closed windows of the duplex. Ada sat at the dining table, laptop open, papers spread before her, her posture rigid and focused. Esther lounged on the sofa in the living room, a bowl of roasted groundnuts in her lap, cracking shells between her teeth with small, sharp snaps. Chica sat by the balcony door, the curtains half drawn. Her phone glowed in her hand, but her eyes weren't on the screen. Instead, they lingered on the night sky, where a scatter of stars clung above the distant city lights. Her chest felt heavy, her thoughts restless. She remembered her mother's face the day they left, the way Mama Grace had reached for them, Bible in hand, tears streaming, calling their names until her voice broke. Chica swallowed hard. She suffered for us. Can a woman who raised us with so much love really be a murderer? Her thoughts were interrupted by Esther's voice, sharp and commanding. Chica, come and sit near me. Why are you hiding by the window like a thief? Chica turned reluctantly and walked over, lowering herself onto the edge of the sofa. Esther studied her closely, eyes narrowing. Your mind is wandering. What are you thinking about? Chica hesitated, then murmured, Auntie, are you sure Mama did what you said? Are you certain she had anything to do with Papa's death? Because she never showed us hate. She gave everything she had. The groundnut bowl paused halfway to Esther's mouth. For a moment, her mask cracked, a flicker of anger flashing in her eyes. She set the bowl aside slowly, leaned forward, and gripped Chica's chin with cold fingers. Listen to me, Esther hissed. Your mother fooled you. That is what witches do. They smile while they stab. They feed while they poison. She kept you close only because she was guilty. And now, she will drag you down with her if you let her. Chica's eyes filled with tears. But she prayed for us every night. I heard her. A murderer does not cry to God like that. Esther released her chin roughly and leaned back, her voice low and dangerous. Those tears were a mask. Stop letting them deceive you. If you continue to doubt me, you will regret it. Remember, I am the one fighting for your future, not her. Ada's voice cut in from the dining table, cold and dismissive. Chica, Auntie is right. Mama deceived us all these years. That's why we're here, and she's still in that wretched village. Don't let pity blind you. Chica looked between her sister and her aunt, her chest tightening. She said nothing more, but inside, doubt refused to die. It stirred and gnawed like a trapped bird, fluttering against the cage Esther had built around her heart. That night, long after the others slept, Chica lay awake staring at the ceiling. She heard Esther's words echoing in her ears, but another sound fought against them, her mother's trembling voice at the gate, whispering, I carried you alone. Ada, Chica, don't leave me. Chica pressed her hands over her ears, tears sliding silently into her pillow. Morning broke over Yuzoki village with a pale orange sky. Roosters crowed from every compound, and the smell of firewood smoke drifted lazily through the air. Mama Grace rose slowly from her raffia mat, her body aching from another sleepless night. She splashed cold water on her face from a clay pot, tied her wrapper, and stepped outside to sweep the compound. Her movements were heavy, her heart still sore from the sting of rejection. The neighbors avoided her eyes now. A few whispered when she passed. One woman at the stream even hissed yesterday, Witch. Leave our children before your curse touches them. Mama Grace had simply lowered her gaze, too tired to fight. Yet this morning, as she swept the dusty ground, she felt a small stirring inside her spirit. A whisper, faint but steady, go to the farm. Work your land. She paused, leaning on the broom. The land Peter had left her, one plot each for Ada and Chica, and one for her to farm. She had neglected hers for years, too busy selling in the market and laboring in other people's fields. But the voice pressed again. Go. Work your land. Without another thought, she fetched her hoe, tied her faded scarf, and began the long walk to the farm. The sun was already climbing, hot against her skin, but she pressed on. When she arrived, weeds had grown high, covering much of the small plot. She sighed and set to work, bending her weary back, striking the earth row after row. Sweat soaked her wrapper, but she refused to stop. Then her hoe struck something hard. Clang. The sound was different from stone. She frowned, bent low, and dug with her hands. The soil crumbled away, revealing something that gleamed faintly in the sunlight. Her breath caught. It was a small, heavy nugget, smooth, glowing faintly yellow. She rubbed it on her wrapper. The shine only grew brighter. Her hands began to tremble. "No, it cannot be," she whispered. She dug faster, hands clawing the earth. Another nugget appeared. Then another. Within minutes, her lap was full of them, each heavier than the last. The more she dug, the more the soil yielded. Raw gold. Real gold, hidden beneath her neglected land all these years. Mama Grace dropped the hoe and fell to her knees. Tears gushed down her cheeks as her hands shook violently. "Jehovah, God of the widow, you have remembered me." She lifted the nugget skyward, her voice breaking. "They abandoned me. They called me a witch. My daughters turned against me. But you, Lord, you did not abandon me. You hid my blessing in this very ground until today." Her sobs turned into laughter, wild and unrestrained. She pressed her forehead into the soil, crying into the earth. "Peter, do you see? Your land has spoken. Our shame is over. Our tears are over." The wind picked up suddenly, rustling the cassava leaves around her as if the land itself were rejoicing. She gathered the nuggets into her wrapper, her body still trembling, and tied them close to her chest. As she stood to leave, her knees almost gave way beneath her. But her face shone like the sun. For the first time since Ada and Chica drove away, Mama Grace did not walk like a broken woman. She walked like one carrying destiny itself. The Abuja sun dipped low, casting orange light across the wide windows of Ada and Chica's living room. The duplex gleamed with new furniture, white curtains swaying gently in the evening breeze from the AC. Ada sat on the sofa, scrolling through emails on her laptop. Chica leaned back in a chair, quiet, lost in thought. Esther walked in from the hallway, her wrapper freshly tied, her expression glowing with self-importance. She looked at the sisters as though they were children sitting in her parlor back in the village. In her hand was a small notebook, and her voice carried a strange authority. "My daughters," she began, settling into the armchair, "we must talk about the future." Ada closed her laptop and looked up. "What about the future?" Esther's eyes gleamed. "You are doing well, Ada. You've bought this fine house, you are moving up in business. But every kingdom must have order. And it is time you honored the woman who has guided you. I am not just your aunt. I am your true mother. So, I deserve my share." Chica frowned, uneasy. "Share? What do you mean?" Esther leaned forward, her voice smooth. "This house is too big for the two of you. I want you to buy another one for me. In my name. And a car, too. Something befitting of a woman who has sacrificed so much." Ada stared at her, lips tightening. "Auntie, we're already stretched. The mortgage, the new contracts, money is tied up. Give us time." Esther's smile faltered. "Time? After everything I have done for you? After saving you from that witch in the village? And you want me to wait? For what?" Chica shifted nervously. "Auntie, we are grateful. But isn't this too much, too fast? We just moved in." Esther's voice rose, sharp as a whip. "Too much. Too fast. You mean you would rather spend on strangers than on me? I am the one who told you the truth about your father. I am the one protecting you. Or do you want to go back to that murderer and live in poverty?" Ada slammed her laptop shut, anger flashing in her eyes. "Don't call her that again. Enough, Auntie." The words shocked even Chica, who looked at her sister wide-eyed. Ada rarely snapped at Esther. But Esther's face twisted, her smile gone completely. So it has come to this. You will raise your voices at me? After I gave you light? After I exposed your mother's darkness? She stood abruptly, her wrapper rustling like dry leaves in a storm. Ingratitude is a curse. But mark my words, you will crawl back to me. You need me more than you think. She stormed toward the hallway, her slippers slapping hard against the tiled floor. Silence clung to the room once she was gone. Ada rubbed her forehead, sighing deeply. She's starting to overstep. Chica nodded slowly, her voice soft. Ada, maybe Mama wasn't what she said. Maybe we judged too quickly. Ada's jaw clenched, but she didn't reply. She only stared at the dark hallway where Esther had disappeared, her mind uneasy for the first time. The next Sunday, Ada and Chica accompanied Esther to a high-profile church in Abuja. The building was massive, its white pillars towering into the sky, filled with wealthy congregants in elegant clothes. Esther walked proudly between her nieces, her wrapper glittering with sequins, her head tie piled high like a crown. She greeted people loudly, introducing herself as though she were the matriarch of the family. Inside, they sat near the front. The sermon began, the choir sang, and all seemed ordinary, until the pastor's voice deepened, his eyes sharp as he scanned the congregation. Young women, he said suddenly, pointing in their direction. Yes, you too. And the woman beside you. Ada and Chica stiffened. Esther smiled nervously, adjusting her head tie. The pastor's voice grew stronger. You sit here today with pride, but the Lord is showing me chains around your family. Chains placed by a woman close to you. A woman who envies what she could not have. Because of her, daughters have rejected their own mother. The congregation gasped. Murmurs rippled across the rows. Ada's eyes widened. Chica's hands began to shake. The pastor pointed directly at Esther. You, woman. Stand up. Esther rose slowly, trying to keep her composure. Man of God, I don't understand. But the pastor's words cut her. Do not lie in the house of the Lord. You went to a native doctor in secret. You mixed charms in food. You twisted the hearts of these young women against their own mother. And now you sit here in fine clothes, demanding houses and cars as if they are yours. Repent, before the judgment of God falls on you. Gasps turned into whispers. Congregants leaned closer, eyes wide. Some covered their mouths. Chica's chest heaved, her mind spinning. Auntie, charms. Food. She remembered the heavy spice in the pepper soup, the strange dizziness afterward. Her eyes filled with tears. Ada stared at Esther, her jaw trembling. Tell me it's not true, she whispered, voice shaking. Esther forced a laugh, waving her hand. This pastor is lying. He doesn't know what he's saying. But the pastor spoke again, his voice thundering. The truth cannot hide forever. The same mouth you used to destroy your sister will confess your deeds. Suddenly, Esther began to shake. Her lips trembled uncontrollably. Words spilled out of her mouth before she could stop them. Yes. Yes, I went. I gave them the powder. I lied. I told them Grace killed their father. I couldn't let her rise while I stayed in her shadow. I wanted them to choose me instead. The congregation erupted. People shouted in shock. Some stood, pointing fingers. Wicked woman. Evil sister. Ada's face crumpled, horror written across her eyes. She turned to Chica, whose tears were flowing freely. They clutched each other, both trembling. Esther collapsed back into the pew, panting heavily. Sweat poured down her face, her wrapper loosening. The pastor's voice rang once more, firm and final. What is built on lies will always crumble. God fights for the innocent. The service continued, but for Ada and Chica, nothing else mattered. Their world had shifted. For the first time since they left the village, the fog around their hearts began to lift. The ride back from church was silent. The SUV that once carried laughter now felt like a coffin. Ada gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, her eyes fixed on the road but blurred by tears she refused to release. Chica sat in the passenger seat, quietly weeping into her palms. In the back, Esther sat hunched, her head bowed, humiliated, the sequins on her wrapper suddenly dull in the harsh sunlight. Halfway home, Ada slammed the brakes, pulling the car to the side of the road. She turned to her sister, her voice trembling. "Chica, what have we done?" Chica lifted her wet face, her eyes red. "We left Mama. We called her a murderer. We let Auntie destroy us." Her voice cracked. "Do you remember how she ran after us, barefoot, begging us not to go? And we drove away." Ada's hands shook on the wheel. "Mama who sold Gary to pay my first semester fees. Mama who tied firewood on her back just so we could eat. And we abandoned her." Chica grabbed her sister's hand, sobbing. "We must go back. We must beg her before it's too late." Ada nodded, her own tears finally breaking free. She turned the car around abruptly, ignoring the honks of other drivers. "We're going home. To Mama." By the time they reached Yuzoki village, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of fire. The SUV rattled over the narrow dirt road, raising a trail of dust as they sped through the familiar path they once thought they had left behind forever. Villagers watched curiously as the shiny car rolled into Mama Grace's compound. Word spread quickly, "The city daughters are back." Women peered from doorways, children ran to see, men shook their heads knowingly. The car stopped. Ada and Chica jumped out, both barefoot now, their hair undone, their faces streaked with tears. They ran across the compound like little girls again, straight to the doorway where Mama Grace sat on a wooden stool, sorting beans into a rusty tray. She looked up slowly. Her eyes were swollen, her body thinner, but her hands never stopped moving. When she saw them, her lips parted. For a long, painful moment, she said nothing. "Mama!" Chica cried, collapsing to her knees in the dust. "Mama, forgive us. We were blind. We believed lies. We called you names. We left you alone. Please, Mama, don't cast us away." Ada fell beside her, bowing low until her forehead touched her mother's feet. Her voice was broken. "Mama, I don't deserve to call you mother. But please, if you still have a place in your heart, forgive us." The tray of beans slipped from Mama Grace's lap, scattering into the dust. Her hands trembled as she reached out, first touching Ada's head, then Chica's, as if to confirm they were real. Her voice was a whisper carried by tears. "My daughters, my blood. You came back." They clung to her legs, sobbing. "Yes, Mama. We came back. We are sorry. Please don't hate us." Mama Grace broke at last, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. She pulled both daughters into her arms, rocking them like she did when they were children. Her sobs mixed with theirs until the whole compound echoed with their cries. The villagers watched silently. Some wept. Others murmured, "Indeed, God fights for the innocent." As the sun sank, the family sat huddled together on the dusty ground, three broken hearts pieced back together by forgiveness. The morning after Ada and Chica's return, the village buzzed like a disturbed hive. Word spread quickly, "The daughters are back," they begged for forgiveness. Some marveled. Others scoffed. But everyone watched. Mama Grace rose before dawn, her daughters sleeping soundly on mats beside her. She stepped quietly outside, Bible clutched to her chest. The air was cool, heavy with dew. She prayed softly, whispering thanks and asking God for one more thing, that her enemies would live to see his vindication. Later that morning, she carried her hoe back to the plot of land Peter had left her. Ada and Chica followed, still unsure why she insisted they come. "Mama, let us rest," Ada protested gently. "You've worked too hard already." But Mama Grace only smiled faintly. "Today you will see what God has done in secret." At the farm, the soil still bore the marks of her digging from days before. She knelt, dug with her hands, and pulled from the earth a glimmering nugget of gold. She held it up, and the morning sun caught it like fire. Ada gasped, covering her mouth. Chica staggered back, her eyes wide. "Mama, is that?" Mama Grace nodded, her tears brimming. She poured several more nuggets into their palms, heavy and undeniable. "This is what I found, the day after you left me broken. The same land your father gave us carried our deliverance all along. When the world mocked me, God buried gold beneath my feet." Her voice grew stronger as she lifted the glittering stone skyward. "Now let those who called me witch see that I was never cursed. I was chosen." Villagers began gathering, drawn by the shouts. They pressed closer, eyes widening as the gold caught the light. Murmurs rose into gasps. "Is it real? It cannot be. Look! Real gold in Mama Grace's land." The very people who had turned her away at the market now bowed their heads. Some fell to their knees in shame. Mama Grace turned slowly, her daughters at her side, her wrapper dusty but her face shining like dawn. "This," she declared, her voice steady, "is the answer to my prayer at my husband's grave. This is justice from heaven." Ada dropped to her knees before her, clutching her mother's hands. "Mama, you are more than blessed. And we nearly destroyed you. But God himself fought for you." Chica wept openly, kissing her mother's palms. "Forgive us again, Mama. We will never leave your side." The crowd erupted, some crying, some cheering, all stunned by the sight. Where they had once spat insults, they now offered blessings. And Mama Grace, the widow who had been mocked and abandoned, stood taller than she ever had in her life. For the first time, she was no longer the poorest woman in the village. She was the woman God himself had lifted. In Abuja, Esther sat alone in the corner of the duplex living room. Her wrapper was untidy, her once proud head tie abandoned on the floor. She rocked back and forth, muttering to herself. Since the church exposure, Ada and Chica had kept their distance, their words clipped, their eyes cold. For days, she had tried to reassert control. She banged on Ada's door demanding food. She hissed insults at Chica whenever she passed. But each time, the sisters ignored her. Her throne was gone. Her voice carried no weight. Now, she clutched a small leather bag. Inside was a handful of coins and the last sachet of powder Baba Salako had once given her. She whispered into it, voice hoarse. "If one man of God has ruined me, another will save me. I will find a stronger Baba. I will not be defeated." That evening, she stormed out of the house, muttering curses. She boarded a bus toward the outskirts of the city, clutching the bag tightly. The ride was bumpy, the air heavy with dust. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with a mad determination. The bus broke down midway. Passengers alighted, complaining. Esther insisted on walking. She took a narrow dirt path into the bush, following directions a trader had once whispered to her. "The new Baba is there. Stronger. Faster. He can turn even stone into gold." The deeper she went, the darker the trees grew. Strange cries echoed, birds. Animals? She couldn't tell. But she pressed on, sweat streaming down her face. "I will rise again. I will not let grace shine while I am forgotten." Suddenly, the path split. She stopped, panting, unsure which way to turn. She chose the left, muttering, "Power is ahead. Just a little further." But with each step, the air grew heavier, pressing down on her chest. Her legs trembled, her vision blurred. She stumbled, clutching the bag tighter. Then, without warning, her feet caught on a root. She crashed to the ground. The bag flew from her hands. The sachet of powder burst open in the dust. Dark smoke rose instantly, curling like a serpent, wrapping around her body. Esther screamed, clawing at the air, but the smoke clung tighter, seeping into her nose, her mouth, her eyes. Her screams turned into choking gasps. "No. Not me. I command you. Obey me." But the smoke did not obey. It laughed. A dry, hollow laugh that came from nowhere and everywhere. Moments later, the forest fell silent. Birds fled the trees. The dust settled. When villagers from a nearby hamlet found the path the next morning, they saw Esther lying still in the dirt, her eyes open, her face twisted in horror. The sachet lay torn beside her. The once proud elder sister who had sought power over blood had met her end in the very darkness she trusted. News traveled fast. Back in Yuzoki, when Mama Grace heard, she only bowed her head and whispered, "The Lord has judged between us." Ada and Chika wept bitterly, not only for their aunt but for the shame of having followed her. And for the rest of their lives, they remembered the day envy destroyed Esther completely. Weeks had passed since Esther's death, but her shadow no longer lingered over Yuzoki. Instead, the village buzzed with new stories. The gold found in Mama Grace's land, the return of her daughters, and the miracle of how truth had triumphed over lies. On a bright Saturday morning, the once abandoned compound of Mama Grace was alive with noise. Workmen moved in and out, carrying cement blocks, roofing sheets, and buckets of paint. The cracked mud walls were being torn down, replaced by fresh brick. Children peeked through the gate, marveling at the transformation. At the center of it all sat Mama Grace on a wooden chair, her wrapper clean and crisp, her head tie white as cotton. Ada and Chika hovered around her, giving instructions to the builders, fetching water, and fussing over their mother like little girls again. "Mama, do you like this design?" Chika asked, showing her a drawing of the new kitchen. Mama Grace chuckled softly. "My daughter, anything you do is good. As long as we will eat together under one roof again." Ada knelt at her side, taking her hand. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Mama, we will never leave you again. You are the foundation of our lives. Forgive us for letting anyone convince us otherwise." Mama Grace touched her cheek gently, her own eyes wet. "I forgave you the day you left me. A mother's heart does not hold bitterness against her children. I only prayed that God would open your eyes." Behind them, villagers gathered in small groups, whispering. The same mouths that once called her which now spoke differently. She was innocent all along. See how God has lifted her. Her enemies are gone, but her name will live. By afternoon, a car pulled into the compound, a sleek black SUV, newer and shinier than the one Ada drove before. Out stepped Blessing, the young woman who had defended Mama Grace when everyone else mocked her. She carried a basket of fruits and wore a simple yellow dress that glowed in the sunlight. Mama Grace's face lit up. "My daughter Blessing. Come, come." She opened her arms. Blessing hurried to kneel before her, but Mama Grace pulled her into a warm embrace. "You are no longer just my helper," she said, smiling through tears. "You are my child." Ada and Chika exchanged glances, their faces softening with gratitude. "Thank you," Ada said sincerely. "You stood with our mother when we failed her. We owe you." Chika added quietly, "We were blind, but you saw her worth." Blessing smiled shyly. "I only did what was right. God doesn't forget widows." As the sun dipped low, painting the sky orange, the family gathered under the breadfruit tree, the same place where joy had once turned to betrayal. This time, laughter filled the air, not sorrow. Bowls of steaming rice and meat were passed around. Children sang in the distance. Mama Grace raised her hands and prayed aloud, her voice steady and strong. Lord, thank you for giving me beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, and honor for shame. Thank you for restoring my children to me, and for silencing every lie. Ada and Chica clutched her hands tightly, tears rolling down their cheeks. Amen, they whispered together. And for the first time in years, Mama Grace ate in peace, surrounded not by betrayal or loneliness, but by love, the kind of love that could not be broken again. The camera of life always returns to the one who was wronged. Months later, Mama Grace stood on the balcony of her rebuilt home. The once cracked mud hut was gone, replaced by a modern house painted cream and gold, its windows wide, its roof gleaming under the sun. She wore a simple but elegant wrapper, her face calm, her eyes full of peace. Inside, Ada and Chica laughed as they prepared food together, the scent of jollof rice filling the house. Their voices, once sharp with anger, were now soft, full of tenderness. Outside, Blessing arranged chairs for guests, humming a hymn as she worked. Mama Grace leaned on the balcony rail and whispered to herself, once I was abandoned, now I am celebrated. Once I was called a witch, now I am called blessed. Her voice trembled with gratitude. O Lord, you have shown me that the stone the builders rejected can become the cornerstone. You have shown me that those who plant envy will reap destruction, but those who hold on to faith will never be forsaken. She lifted her Bible and kissed it. Below, villagers gathered, some carrying gifts, others simply staring in awe. The same lips that had spat on her name now greeted her with, Mama Grace, good afternoon, and, Mama Grace, pray for us. But Mama Grace did not gloat. She only smiled and said softly, God has done it, not me. As the sun set in brilliant gold, the camera of the heart closed in on her face. Wrinkles, yes, but each line a story of survival. Tears, yes, but each one now sweetened by joy. She turned to her daughters and called their names, Ada, Chica, Blessing. They looked up, smiling, their eyes filled with love. My children, she said, never forget this, honor your mother, even in her weakest days. Do not let lies steal your blood away. For when you dishonor the one who gave you life, you dishonor yourself. Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth, as the scene faded. And to the viewers, the question remains. If this was your mother, would you abandon her, or stand by her?